We're going to try and invite some people to interview to make it more interesting. And we were lucky that MotoAmerica is coming to New Jersey this weekend, and we're able to invite two guests, actually, three, in fact, actually this weekend. First, the Yamaha Champion Riding School did an event this past weekend. So we're going to have Ienatsch from that school come and visit us and talk a little bit about helmet fit. Our ongoing topic in the future is going to be about how a properly fitted helmet will help you ride better, be more confident, and protect you better. So Nick is helping us explain a little bit about that. And then we're going to bring Sean Dillon Kelly and Chris Ulrich from the M4 ECSTAR Suzuki team in over, because they'll be racing this weekend at the MotoAmerica event. And we'll talk a little bit about our relationship with them and how Arais affect their performance. First of all, I'd like to point out that this is an Arai America's video. We cover North and South America. So while the broad spectrum of what we talk about here may apply to other markets, if you are watching this from a different market, some of the specifics may not apply to your market or certifications. So be aware it's important to always check the details in your market. Always buy a helmet from your market. It's important to realize that certifications change around the world and they don't all cross over. So it's important to stay in your market, get information from your market. But some of the information we have here should apply as far as fit, what Arai does, why Arai does it, the history of Arai, and basically racing in general. So having said that, I'd like to welcome Nick to the studio, as it were. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate you being here. So you guys ran a two-day event this past weekend.
Yeah, we did 3 days. We did a hybrid day on the first day with street riders and track riders, and then the last 2 days were all track, but a lot of street riders as well.
Okay, awesome. So real quick, before I get too far ahead, I always get ahead of myself. Give us a little history about your background in racing and the school.
I was working at a bike shop in Salt Lake City, Utah, and going to college being an English major, and wrote a letter to the magazines and got hired at Motorcyclist in '84. So I've been around doing that for a long time, and then the racing thing just kind of happened at the magazines. I was hanging out with Dexter Ford and Jeff Carr and Art Friedman and Brent Ross, and they were all going racing, and just kind of got me involved in that. And luckily enough to meet Eddie Lawson in '85, and just really talked to him a lot about what he was doing, did a lot of work with him in the magazines and discussed his approaches, and that just kind of bled off on me. And as the magazine thing wound down, I started Sport Rider in '93. As that kind of wound down in '96 and '97, I wrote a letter to Honda, said, can we start a school? And Honda wrote back and said, we got one person ahead of you, Freddie Spencer. And so I wrote a letter to Freddie and said, hey, I want to get in on this and help you out. So Freddie hired me, and '97 we started Freddie Spencer School, and he let me be the lead in that and just work with another world champion. Kind of bled off on my approach and my philosophy. It helped me go racing, and did well on the racetracks, and led me. The racing and the school went together, grew together, and that's how it happened.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize it. We actually started the same year.
Yeah.
I started with the Arai in '84. That's
cool.
I went to Japan the first time in '85, so I was still a newbie doing tech, grunt work. So I thought you actually started racing first and then got into the magazines. It was the other way around.
It was, yeah, came off the street. Yeah.
And then after the magazines, you got into racing, and you actually won a championship in the Twins or the 250s?
It was called Super Teams back then. It was an hour-long race. 2 riders had to ride a minimum of 20 minutes, and I was with Tommy Lynch. In '93, we won the championship for Arion, and then I was with Larry Pegram in '94 and won the championship as well with 2 brothers, or vice versa, 2 brothers in Arion, and then went on to Dutchman and we got second. And meanwhile, I was racing 250 Grand Prix and I got second and third. Rich Oliver always beat me, and Jimmy Felice and Chuck Sorensen, but I'm not bitter.
Yeah. No. Well, those are good names to be right up with.
Yeah,
so
Jimmy and Rich, 2 most winning riders in 250 Grand Prix history, and so they beat me pretty soundly. Yeah.
Well, it's cool, but so you bring a lot of experience, obviously, to the team. I mean, to the school.
Yeah.
It's not just a bunch of guys, riding around.
Yeah.
So the experience is awesome. You have a 2-day event, like you said, and there's 2 different levels as far as what you're doing. Yeah. And we sponsored the school right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
When it was the Freddie Spencer School, running out of Utah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we started in Vegas.
Okay.
But Freddie of course got with Arai. Arai was our sponsor then. I was in racing in Arai a lot. Racing in Arai whenever I could. I had Arai helmets before I joined the magazine as on my personal bikes, and my dad had them, and so we were on the team already. And then when we launched YCRS, you know, with Josh Siegel, Keith Culver, Lemore Shore, David Bober's involved now, Chris Paris. When we launched YCRS, Ken Hill was involved. Then we only called Arai. We didn't send out a bunch of letters. We said, if we can't get Arai, we'll move to our second choice. But you know, I've been racing in them, been protected by them, and believe in them.
Cool. Now, to get on the subject of the purpose of the video and why we're doing this, fit is an incredible component of racing, riding on the street or on the track. A helmet that's too big is distracting, it's noisy, it becomes a distraction or a liability. And honestly, the number one indicator of a helmet that's too big is when someone complains about noise. If the helmet's fitted properly, it should be quiet or quieter, it should not be noisy. So if your helmet's noisy, chances are it's too big. Most people we see are in a helmet that's at least one, if not two sizes too big. So when we talk about fit and how that applies to racing, we talked a little earlier about when we first picked you up as a sponsor or a sponsored rider. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was running around in a large helmet, you know, and I was fine. And so, like so many of us, I put my helmet on. It slides on. It's comfortable, you know, bedroom slipper.
Right.
Really, this is a comfortable helmet. And as the demands of racing, you go to Daytona, you go to Elkhart Lake, you go to Brainerd. Back then we raced Brainerd, and the speeds were so high that the thing would be moving on my head. And as I got more in with you all, you grabbed me and put me in a medium. And a lot of people don't know the head shapes can be different. I'm in a long oval medium helmet now, and it just quieted things down. Things quit moving around, less distracting. All sorts of good things happened. And and you know, Mark Thompson, Keith Culver are here from YCRS with me today. And how many times do people come up to us and say, "I can't drop my head like you guys do because I can't see out of my helmet because their helmets are too big." And we say, "What size are you?" And they say, "I'm a medium." Go get a small. And we bring out a small, boom, and they are going. And I can see everything opens up. It's quieter, more comfortable. So it happened 3 times at the last school. 3 riders came in with the wrong helmet, wrong sized helmet, and boom, put them in the Arai, and changes their whole day.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. When a helmet fits properly, you don't have to readjust it constantly. Your eyes will be in the center of the eye port. It'll be stable coming out of a tuck, going into a tuck. You don't have to be readjusting with your shoulders, but part of the aspect of a helmet that fits properly is the field of view. As Nick said, a helmet that comes down on your head is going to block your field of view. You can't get in a proper tuck. You can't get low enough and see the track ahead of you. So it's important for racing more than anything, but for the street, a helmet that's moving around, it's causing pressure points, it's distracting, it's noisy, it's a liability. You don't enjoy the ride. You want to stop riding sooner. A helmet that's comfortable and that fits properly will let you ride for hours. You'll forget you're wearing the helmet. You'll enjoy the ride. Yeah. You'll be safer. And in the end, should you crash, a helmet that's fitted properly will protect you better. It will absorb more energy. A loose helmet is not as protective as a helmet that's properly fit. So we had the opportunity to send Jeff to the school at the second day and put a helmet that's a little bit big for you to basically do a video to show exactly how a much larger helmet performs. And you weren't going full tilt. I mean, we have to remind everyone this is a closed course professional rider, ambulances, runoffs, airbags, all that stuff, and he wasn't going at full tilt.
I was trying as hard as I could. That was a 3-minute lap, I think. Lap record's about a 120. So no, we'll take a look at that.
All right, so we'll basically put that video up that we took to show how that helmet moves around and can be, you know, a liability as opposed to an asset.
Yep. This is only really one size larger than I would normally wear back in the day. You know, I thought it was a large, and so we put on an XL. And as I put it on, boy, it slipped right on, Brian.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is...
It's like how many people put a helmet on at the store and slip it and just let it slide right on.
And as I learned, everybody, we got to pull those chin straps out a little bit to expand that line, to put it on. And so these are the things that I learned, and we help with our students. So, and I know Sean Dillon and Chris Ulrich have both been to Daytona. They've done well at Daytona. As you come onto the banking, you're actually looking up at the banking.
Yeah.
So now your helmet's too big, your eye port's too low, you have no neck muscles by the 3rd lap of practice because you can't get your head in the right position to look up the banking out of Daytona. Mm-hmm. So these issues come into play, and you don't think about them when you're new to the sport,
right.
Amateur in the sport. You kind of have to get with someone like your gang that
right.
helped us, or now our school's big proponent of proper fit.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So we have the video. there it is.
All right, so we're in New Jersey and run around in a lapping session, and we just get a chance, and you can see it's trying to come down over my nose, and we'd like to have that breath guard over my nose, and it's come down over my nose, and as I tip the thing in there, kind of okay, but I'm trying to get eyes past the eye port. As I sit up on the brake lever, it's moving around on my head. Luckily, the face shield is clean, but the dirtier your face shield, the more that movement's going to hurt us. I'm trying to look up through into turn number 9, and you can see, man, I'm just struggling I'm adjusting it. So now here's your rider taking the hand off the bar because my helmet's not fit right, and I'm trying to get it off. You see me adjusting with my shoulder right there, Brian?
I show your shoulders kind of, shrugging to try and keep the helmet up and over.
See it wiggling around, everybody? Everybody see that wiggling around? If this is you on the street, if you're a passenger and you're going for a ride and your helmet doesn't fit you right, it gets to be really uncomfortable, and it starts to scrape on your skin because it's wiggling around. Everybody see it wiggling, wobbling around? Yeah, it's kind of like, man, I'm adjusting it like this is a pain in the butt. As I sit up on the brakes, it's just rattling on my head. Now, I want to repeat what Brian said. You're going to have a loud ride when your helmet's too big. It's just nowhere near my ears. It's like a bell on top of my head. And so now the thing's a lot of wind noise. It's rattling around.
If you have the opportunity, most people, when they talk about wind noise, I always ask them if they have the opportunity to stand up in clean air to get out of the aerodynamics of the bike. And in clean air, if the helmet's quiet, then you know the helmet can be quiet. There's an opportunity.
I'm illustrating here, but just taking that helmet, I'm wiggling it around and showing you, boy, this is wrong.
Yeah. So again, it feels great, it's awesome, and you can share it with your buddy who's got a bigger helmet or a head, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not really good for you. But wind noise basically is generated by the air that's being trapped in your chest here, coming around the pharynx, up underneath, and trying to escape. And it's trying to escape through the gap. This gap between the bottom of the helmet and your shoulder, so all this air is compressing and ripping through this area. That's what creates the wind roar that most people experience. So if you stand up in clean air, if you can safely, you'll notice the helmet gets extremely quiet. Or as you're riding, you shrug your shoulders gently to close off this gap. And if you've closed this gap off and the helmet's quiet, you know that it's this roar, this aerodynamic effect that's trying to get up inside your ear. If the helmet's loose, there's not enough padding to block that wind or noise from getting up inside and right to your ear. So if you get a helmet that's fitted properly, it will come down and close off. And as Nick had talked about, you want a helmet that you have to spread open to get past your ears. Our helmets taper in at the bottom more than most in order to grab under your jaw to seal out noise, but also grab your jaw to keep the helmet stable from lifting and pushing back. So a properly fitted helmet is not how easy it goes on, not how comfortable it is out of the box. It's like a brand new shoe. It's like a tall boot. You got to work to get your foot in there, and it's a little bit firm and stiff and maybe a little tight at first, but you're going for how it wears and how it breaks in. So once the helmet breaks in and settles in and shapes itself to your head, the foams collapse and compress, and it basically becomes your helmet. That's the fit you're looking for. Any helmet can feel comfortable in a store for 10 minutes, any helmet. You don't get the pressure points until you're on the bike, in the saddle, in the wind. You don't get to see how much this brow is blocking until you get to a traffic light and realize you can't see the light without tipping your head. So it's important to recognize, first and foremost, get the most snug fit you can without being painful. We have tape measures that most of our dealers are carrying. You want to start with a measured fit. Measured fit is the starting point. It's not the end all be all. You don't say, I measure medium, I must be a medium. It's just a starting point to prove where you should be starting. As Nick had mentioned, a medium, I can put 3 mediums here, and not all of them will fit the same model. Some might be a small in one model. Some might have to go up to an extra large because of the shape of their head, a large, because the shape of their head dictates a little extra room. But then we pad it. We replace the chin liner or cheek pads or headliner to accommodate their custom fit. So there's so many things to worry about. You need to go to a dealership and ask someone that knows what they're doing. We've got another video here that we took in New Jersey at the school. Roger Hayden was actually at the school this weekend, and we did a hot lap with him as well.
Yeah. Roger, national champion, superbike winner. dirt track winner, and Roger's taken advantage of what Arai does so well, everybody, and that is, yeah, you've got the right shell size, but Arai will adjust your cheek pads, it'll adjust your liner to your exact face, and you see Roger's helmet is right on the money. It's not wiggling quickly. Yeah, it's going over bumps and it's moving on his head, but his head's moving inside of it. It's a much safer situation. It's a much more comfortable situation. It's quieter, and look what he's doing. He's not taking his hands off the bar to adjust. This is just a given. And Ryan, this is why Arai stands out to me. You can change cheek pads, you can change your inner liner and get the thing to be perfect, and that's what Roger's taken advantage of.
And that's the cool thing about Arai. Arai was the first company to introduce fully removable, washable interiors. And we talked earlier a little bit I wanted to cover is your helmet can be fully submerged in water and washed completely if you want. Of course, you have to make sure you rinse it out completely and dry it and make all the water escape, because you don't want drips of water when you go riding next. But you can fully wash it, fully change out the liner interior. Your liner gets destroyed, you can replace it. Yeah. Nick was talking about on a really hot day, you can dip your cheek pads and headliner in cool water.
Yeah. We just did a Marine Corps Level 3, Mark Schellinger, Mark Thompson, and myself this week, 113 degree heat index, right, down at Cherry Point Marine Corps Base. And those Marines were very hot, we were very hot, and we told them you could wet your liner. So now we're pouring our water into our liner, putting our helmets on, and they stay cool for 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. And because it's what Arai told us about this, you can put water in there. And so all of us that are doing track days on hot days, you're riding across the Arizona desert, put some water in there, get that thing wet, and off you go, and it's perfectly okay. And that's a big thing. Yeah. And that changed, right, Mark? That changed the whole day for those guys. All of a sudden, at least I've got 10 minutes of cool ahead.
So as Arai evolved, I mean, we started really actively seeking to be the best helmet in the world back in the early 70s. Mr. Arai basically took the mantle and wanted to be the best, not the best seller, not the best profitable helmet, the best in protection. And we're recognized the world over as the most comfortable and arguably the helmet that has the most unique protection. We've seen some impacts that defy logic. Guys hit the ground and get right back up. So Arai has been in this game for a long time, and we learned how to fit heads properly. We learned how to make a production helmet fit extremely well. So we've kind of almost made the optional liners more of a convenience. Yeah, yeah. For somebody who just wants to replace it, refresh it, maybe lost a little weight, maybe gained a little weight, you can adjust that liner without replacing your helmet. Actually, our interior cheek pads, you can peel away the top layer to thin it out without replacing those cheek pads. Save yourself some money there. Temple pads. Temples can either be sunken or a little bit external. We have peel away temple pads to alleviate pressure on your temples without having to buy another liner. But the beauty is that most people will fit an Arai out of the box. But if you have to custom fit it, you can. It's quite easy, it's simple, and the removable liners help you wash, help you keep the helmet fresher longer. So it's important that you take good care of your equipment. You want to basically treat your helmet as the most important piece of safety equipment you're ever going to own, because in my opinion it is. You know, boots are important, but you break an ankle, you know, you can hobble around on crutches. Your head is pretty important to you. I want you to take extreme care of that. So we talked a little bit about its success. You have multiple students learning how a properly fitted helmet can affect their riding, getting them in the right size. Yeah. Any other anecdotes from the school that you want to share?
A couple little things. By the way, they cut Roger Hayden's lap short on the video because if you were timing it, mine was quicker.
We did that for
just
you.
Kidding.
We did
just
that
kidding, Roger.
Yeah.
Don't get me. Roger's been with us for a couple of schools now. Really enjoying having him there. It's just great to have a champion's verbiage in there. And we had Brandon Posh come in with us. Anthony Mazziato showed up. I mean, this is kind of the way it's going with Champion School. And it's Champion School because we're the best in the world doing. That's what we're doing. And getting people into helmets. It's funny that Jeff came to the school a couple years ago, Jeff, and he was walking us through how to take care of our helmet. And everything he said not to do, we were doing. Huh, Keith? Don't use Windex on the face shield. Oops. Don't put them on your mirror. Oh. We were just goofing up everything possible. Yeah. But what I found out is some myths. There's some myths out there. You drop your helmet, people say your helmet's done. Not true, huh?
Right. It depends. I mean, we talked about it a little earlier. If it's a low drop on ground, the helmets are designed to absorb a tremendous amount of energy. It's designed to work as a outer shell to retain integrity and distribute the energy over the widest area, and the interior liner crushes as your head pushes through it. If there's no weight and no momentum or kinetic energy behind a drop and it just hits the shell basically takes a shot, cracks the paint. depending on the drop, you might put a little dink in the shell. The tests that we test to are 9, 10 feet in the air, 5 kilogram head form onto a steel anvil, massive impact, massive damage, but the helmet then takes a second shot and can still stay within the parameters.
6 feet.
From 6 feet.
So it's a 10-foot drop, 250
G's, give or take, depending.
The second drop's 200 G's.
200 and change, a little bit above.
And it holds out.
And it still holds the integrity of the...
I wanted to mention that because, Brian, we said, somebody will drop their helmet and somebody will say that's junk, and that's the things that pass along.
Right.
The second thing that is interesting is that I've got some old helmets, you know, and I hear, only use your helmet for 5 years, and I thought, they're trying to sell me another helmet.
Right.
But what happens is, as your head moves in that helmet over the years, you're condensing that pad, or the styrofoam, is that the right word? And so all of a sudden, that looseness in the head, the problem is now your helmet's loose, so if you do crash in that helmet, the helmet hits the object, it stops moving, now here comes your head, loose in the liner, and it's a bigger impact. So this idea to change your helmet out is because just wear and tear.
Wear and tear. It's 5 years is the estimated time that it takes to really beat up a helmet to the point where it's sloppy and loose. Even replacing your liner and cheek pads to keep it fresh isn't really enough. I mean, the padding, the soft padding is what really breaks down quickly, but the EPS takes a pounding. Mirrors, hair products, cleaners, all those things can have unknown effects of these materials. We have no idea how bad it is. So it's important to recognize that a helmet should be replaced. They get old. The standards change. We improve constantly. Helmets are getting better, lighter, more aerodynamic. They get cooler. So it's important to recognize that you should replace them routinely. It's not, we've got a lot of people, can I refurbish my helmet? It's not a vintage car. 3 main components of a helmet: shell, liner, and chin strap. If I replace 1 or 2 of them, you might as well replace the helmet. So the idea is to get yourself the latest, greatest whenever possible, because you are getting better protection, better performance. And then I'm going to qualify that drop your helmet, it's okay thing before we go. This only pertains to Arai. I know how good Arais are and how much abuse they will take. I know how much a drop on the floor might give. We have people call us, ask us to inspect the helmets, and we do. There's no test, it's all experience. We look at the helmet, look how much damage there might be to it. How far did it drop? What did it drop on? What does it look like? It's one of those things where it's minor, but it's a compromise. The helmet has been compromised. How much? We don't know, but it's up to the person to decide, is that enough to make me want to replace the helmet? Murphy's Law means you're going to hit that spot the next time you crash. So think about that before you decide, I'll just brush it off, it's fine. I'll put a little touch-up paint on it. Another thing, after you crash, don't fix your helmet and then send it in for inspection. Send it in with the damage visible so we can see it and determine whether or not the helmet's okay. But that is a rule of thumb. If you go down and smack your head on the ground, pretty much, if you've got to the fiberglass, you want to basically err on the side of caution and replace that helmet. So it's important to recognize helmets were designed with a purpose in mind, to give itself up to protect you, to take all that energy before it gets to you. So if a helmet has suffered any impact or injury, it's probably a good idea to assume it's been compromised and to replace it. You'll be happier for it the next time you hit the ground. So having said that, try not to hit the ground,
Working on pretty hard on that, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. That's, nobody intends to crash, but that's not always our choice, especially on the road. People not paying attention these days, more and more people on the road. So it's important to get the best equipment you can get. I know Arais are expensive, people tell us all the time, but it's within reach of almost every rider. Maybe not today, maybe not cash out of your pocket, but it's within reach of any rider that wants to get the best helmet, the most comfortable helmet. Save up a little bit, you can get the best helmet.
Our thinking on that is, you sell a high-end product, we sell a high-end product at Champ School, and our thinking is that you're spending money on machinery. You're getting a pipe, you're getting maybe ECU reflash, maybe a shock absorber. You're spending money on the bike, and we're just asking you, hey, look, the most precious part of your body, your head, spend some money on your head, and of course, we always feel like if you spend a little bit of money on yourself with us, spend your money on your riding with us, we will match all those high performance parts on your bike and make them work better, because the engineer is the most important part, and that's what we work on, and that's what you're trying to protect. And
that's the beauty of it. The school helps you get the most out of that investment of the bike, and the helmet helps you get the most out of your riding skills. And again, should you need it for what it was designed for, a properly fitted quality helmet will protect you better than the minimum, if that's all you're looking for. A lot of people are like, just give me the basic, that's all I need. How many times have you heard, oh, I don't ride that much, I don't need a good helmet? new riders need better protection, in my opinion.
Yeah. I said to my dad one time, and this was years ago, and I was a young smart ass, and he said something, and I said, well, Dad, I don't plan to crash. He just grabbed me and said, do you think people who crash motorcycles plan to crash? It's called an accident. So this is really kind of a fantastic thing, because someone leaves their garage with no jacket, no boots, no helmet, sunglasses, and they're going to go for 100 miles. They're going to go for a significant ride, but they don't plan to crash.
Right.
So everybody, man, we stack the gear on. When we do these Marine Corps stuff, we're in full gear, because when it goes wrong, we want to be completely protected. And what we see at our school, the riders who tip over, the gear, we rarely have an injury, knock on wood. I mean, rarely does the ambulance even move. Right, Keith? I mean, it doesn't go drastically wrong, because they've got all the gear on. We're Alpenstar on our body, we're Arai on our head, and I'm telling you, we're the safest. New Jersey did a little test. We're the safest renters over the course of years that they've ever had. And we do have a tip over now and then, but they're on all the right stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we'll have a link to the school in the video here. So if people are interested, please click that link. Basically, give them a shout out. They're actually gracious enough to, on their way from New Jersey to DC, to talk to the Marine Corps. They've already done some Marine Corps training. They're presenting a new option for training in the future, so it's awesome. Marine Corps and the military is a huge motorcycle community, so it's nice to be able to ingratiate that community and help them become better riders. So we really appreciate you taking the time on your way down. I had to get up pretty early to get here, I'm sure, so we do appreciate it very much. And we're going to basically end it there. I appreciate Nick coming. Please give the school a look. Check it out. They're all over the country, east, west, and throughout the middle. I think, how many schools do you do a year?
We're 1 or 2 a month, so between 20 and 24.
Okay,
schools,
so there's got to be one near you at a time that you can do, so please give them a look. And we're going to end it here, and we're going to invite Sean Dale Kelly and Chris Ulrich from M4 ECSTAR Suzuki to join us in just a minute.
Both national winners.
That's right. All right, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. We've just invited Sean Dale Kelly and Chris Ulrich to join us here in the studio. Basically, I'll start off with a little brief history of Hammer. I'm going to ask Chris to start that. Arai and Hammer have been working together for more than 2 decades.
It's going on 37 years.
Okay, we're over close to 4 decades.
1983.
Okay, 83. So basically, the year before I started with Arai, basically I came into Arai with that relationship already being in play. Now I went around with my dad at the races before we had that relationship, so I was kind of there when it started. But so it was your dad who started the team with
Bruce Hammer.
Bruce Hammer.
Yeah, so it's gone from John Ulrich and Roger Weston to Chris Ulrich and Brian Weston in the United States, and then also through Mitch in Japan,
Mitch
and then Aki. Yeah, Mitch and Aki.
So nepotism runs deep.
Yeah.
Basically, just keep handing it down to the next generation.
It's a couple of family, between the U.S. and Japan, it's 3 family businesses still working together.
So that's awesome. So basically, we had support of the team when it was an endurance team, when your dad was still racing, and then your dad went on to make an endurance team, but then started racing, being the manager of a team and hiring young guns.
Yep.
So
through that the endurance racing deal, we always were able to attract young talent, develop the talent, and then launch their careers. So many fast racers from the 80s, 90s now, just over the decades have been able to come through our team. When we were in their endurance team, they got to go just laps, your repetition, right? Everything, practice makes permanent. And so when you're doing that many miles and that gnarly of a situation, it's a pretty big pressure cooker riding for the endurance team. And we really were able to develop some great riders like Thomas Stevens and Josh Hayes and so many, Mike Harth, there's Jamie James, so many guys went through our program, Doug Tolan, a lot of guys. Anyway, I can name them all day long. Jamie Hacking, that was another good one that came through our program. But it was just a high pressure situation, and you got to do so many laps in that situation, and end up developing a lot of great riders. And through that experience, then he had a pretty good method to nurture the young talent, find it, spot it, and then launch it off. One of his good finds was Kevin Schwantz, also, who ran across him at an endurance race in the 80s, and then helped start out his test ride and got him on the bike the day before, so he excelled and then launched his career. So John Hopkins and Ben Spies also came through our program. Just being a racer himself, it was good. Now as I've retired and transitioned into this management role, I've taken over the talent recruitment and spotting everybody, and I'm still pretty current, so I know who's doing what.
So was Sean your pick?
Sean was my guy.
Awesome. That was your first guy?
I think John liked me too.
John did, but
well, you got to get John's approval.
Yeah,
it's not like it's to give him.
Martin Cardenas was my first one. Okay. I was still racing, and I was racing Martin at the time, and it was like he was riding this ZX10, and I was riding my GSXR, and I was watching him just going, oh my gosh, man, you're going to wad that thing. And he never did, and when the opportunity came to sign him for a 600 ride, it was like, we have to get that guy. And we did that mid-season, and he rode for us from, I think it was 2007 until 2012, so won a couple championships for us.
Okay, so that was quite a bit ago. So obviously you proved yourself, so your dad felt comfortable letting you take over. So
we've had our misses and we've had our hits, but most of them have been hits.
Well, you had Bobby last year, and you won the championship, and then you picked up your first year was with the team was last year. So I'm going to jump to you and ask, I don't know much about you. What's your history before M4, and then how did you come to be on M4, and then what's your experience so far?
Yeah, so I grew up in South Florida. I was born and raised in Miami, and obviously coming from down there, it's there's not a lot of racing down in South Florida. So when I grew up racing, I started when I was 6 years old, and it all starts as a hobby, right? Just buying a little bike, and my family doesn't come from racing, so a little bit of an unusual start for me to get into this world, but I always tell everyone I was born with something in my blood, and I just was in love with it since I was a little kid. But yeah, I just started doing local races, and everything started doing well, so I got involved with this and fell in love with the sport, and I just grew up doing local stuff, CCS when I was, growing up in the years. And then in 2014, I had to race in Mexico because I wasn't old enough to do the RC Cup in the States.
Everyone goes to Mexico to do all the usual things. So you went to Mexico to race.
Well, I had to do something. I was only 12 at the time, and I did the RC Cup, the KTM Cup, in Mexico, and it was the first year that they were doing it all around not the U.S., but the world, and I think that was the first year they were doing it in MotoAmerica as well, but the minimum age was like 15. So I was quite a few years off, and we decided to race there. And then at the end of that year, this was 2015. I won the championship in Mexico. I was able to do the world finals of KTM, which was in Silverstone. This was my first time ever racing in Europe, which was obviously insane for a 12-year-old. But I was able to get the sub-championship from 2 races in Silverstone. I actually won my first ever race internationally. So I was the youngest one there in Silverstone, which was, again, insane for not only me, but also for my parents, you know, that had gone so many years supporting me, and now to out of nowhere be in England, winning a technically a world finals race was crazy. But 2 weeks after that, I had gotten the invitation or the approval to do the Red Bull Rookies Cup selection event, which we know Red Bull Rookies Cup is a really well-known championship from riders all over the world. And I went to the selection event 2 weeks after. From 130 kids throughout 3 days, I got chosen from those 130. It ended up being 10. I was one of those. I was the only American to be chosen for, this would be end of 2015 for the 2016 season. And obviously that was, you know, a dream come true for my family and I to be into the Red Bull Rookies Cup. But we knew it wasn't going to make things any easier. We had to move to Spain at the start of 2016, which sounds easy to say on camera, but it was absolutely crazy for all of us.
How's your Spanish?
Oh, it's perfect. My family they're all from Argentina, so
that definitely helpful. I'm sure.
Absolutely. No, it was definitely a lifesaver going into not only living in Spain but also being in the MotoGP paddock. You know, it's Spanish and English are the most talked languages there, so
that's awesome.
It was good. It was surprising for a lot of people to see an American speaking Spanish there, but definitely opened up my doors. I think, you know, to be able to meet so many people, talk to so many people there. And now, at this age, now have a lot of connections there, you know. So, raced in 2016 in Rookies Cup, and the way that works is at the end of the season, they can either say, go home, or we want you for another year. So I was lucky to, I guess, somehow impress them enough to get chosen for the 2017 season, and then do a second year in the Rookies Cup. And then after 2017, I got invited as well for 2018. And 3 years is the max for the Red Bull Rookies Cup. They don't choose you. It doesn't matter if you're within the age limit or not. 3 years is the max. So obviously for us to get 3 years in the Rookies Cup was absolutely amazing. Learned a lot. Tough 3 years. I can't say it wasn't. But I'd say I definitely learned everything I did from there. Not only as a rider, but also as a person. You know, to be able to be there and learn everything was amazing. And then end of 2018 was, I think, quite the story. I can get pretty in detail, but it'd be a long story. But for a moment, I thought I wouldn't have anything for 2019, considering we were in Spain, we were looking for things in Europe. But luckily, I had the connection with John and Chris, and from one to the other, I was in California signing my contract with Suzuki, which was an absolute dream as well for my family and I. So there I was, 2019, my rookie season in MotoAmerica. Parents and I had to move back to the U.S., which was another crazy story, but really happy that we had that and got the opportunity to come race in MotoAmerica for my first time. And here we are now in 2020 racing my second season in MotoAmerica.
Now, how long did it take your parents to get behind your hobby and you transition, I want to go racing? I mean, moms are usually, and my wife is, you know, I have a son and my wife has been around the industry a long time, and it was hard for me to get her to let me put him on a motorcycle. It's still hard every time we go riding, and he still won't forgive me for not putting up the
That's a tough sell for any mom. My dad had to convince my mom too. So
it's tough. So how long did it take your mom and dad to come around for you?
Probably like 2 days. Honestly, at this point,
wow, that's pretty good.
No, I definitely took her a lot longer, but at this point right now, I think she's one of the craziest in the family. She's definitely #1 fan. She is definitely really into it. She has as much passion as my dad and I have for this sport right now, which is awesome. Absolutely amazing. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for both of my parents backing, you know. So I can't say it was easy on her when I was 6 years old racing. I can't say it's easy on her right now either. But
still a baby,
100%, and I always will be her baby. So, but that she has the passion and she pushes for me 100%. There's no doubt about that.
That's awesome. So she's not home fretting every time you go on the weekend waiting. You know, she's actually actively supporting.
100%. She's actively supporting, and for a lot of years, she was actually the one that unfortunately could never go to a race when I was little. she always had to be working. You know, she's in the restaurant business, so that means, you know, late hours and just being there constantly. And it was definitely, my dad was the one driving 20 hours every weekend for me, and I was the one sleeping in the back of the van, you know. So it was, you know, how it went pretty much for many, many years. And then we went to Spain. She was, when we, first year in 2016, she was able to come as well. But then, you know, for financial reasons, she had to come back to the US for 2017 and 2018 and work while my dad and I were racing. So it was definitely tough for all of us, you know, being separated for so long and stuff like this. But it was worth it. Now, this year, she had been able to come for pretty much all of the opening rounds, which is, you know, 5, 6 rounds, how many rounds we're at right now. She's able to come every weekend and spend time with me. So it's nice to have this balance, you know, to even though it's been, you know, tough years, but able to spend time with her and really enjoy the weekends.
No, it's great that, you know, you're in the States, so she can fly back and forth much more easily,
Exactly.
still keep a regular schedule.
Absolutely.
All right, so basically before you came with the Hammer team, had you ever been in Arai or had an Arai before?
I had not.
Had not. So Team Hammer was your first experience.
First experience.
So not naming names or pointing out any flaws, you know, from moving from what you were into what you're in now, what's your impression and your feeling having come into an Arai? I mean, obviously the team is probably a huge, you know, overwhelming thing to wrap your head around and get used to, but how did the helmet play in that? What do you think? What are your impressions of Arai?
So I was, number one, I was really happy to get on an Arai.
Okay.
Not just because of the history of Arai, and not just because it's a team sponsor and I'm, you know, with Arai right now, but coming from, again, not naming anything, coming from what helmet company I was coming from, the Rookies Cup, which was a Rookies Cup sponsor, to then come here in the US and get on an Arai was very relieving for me. It totally changed everything for me. You know, I had actually a lot of issues in the Rookies Cup with helmets.
Okay.
I had some pretty bad crashes in the Rookies Cup with that helmet company, and it wasn't exactly the best ending. So to get onto an Arai and then have such, you know, successful feeling, really, it was just, number one was the fit, you know, and having someone, I think Jeff was the first one that had ever fitted a helmet for me, and it was absolutely to the perfection, you know. I put the helmet on and he looked at, you know, how my helmet was moving. I think the helmet size was good, but I needed some more cheek pads or some more on the back and the front, and when I put it on, it was just amazing. You know, I had no issues, and it just felt really, really good, and I had, you know, definitely the best experience I've had so far with the helmet.
Cool. Yeah, basically, you know, thin faces tend to need extra cheek pads. Some people have very wide cheekbones, so you need thinner cheek pads. So that's cool that we're able to do that. So last year was your rookie season, and you actually had your first win last year.
I did. It was quite the rookie season. I was very lucky to, you know, in my rookie MotoAmerica Super Sports season, to be on with M4 ECSTAR Suzuki, and it was a big year. We had some pretty big names in the class. You know, Bobby Fong, my teammate, had won the season. We had Hayden Gillum, we had PJ Jacobson, we had, you know, Josh Hayes was on there for many of the rounds, and it was big names, but, you know, I think it was a really good season for me to get, you know, the first time on a 600. Rookies Cup is a Moto3 bike, so it was quite the step for me.
So that's your first time on 600 when you got the M4?
So it was, I had a 600 for training in 2018 when I was in Spain, but it was a CBR 600, and I hadn't really gotten on a big track too much, because, you know, in Spain we can ride on kart tracks, because kart tracks there are the size of some of our big tracks, you know. So training was a little bit different, but when I actually started racing on the 600 here, which my first race was Daytona, it was my first time racing on a 600, so it was, you know, still a big step, and not only that, you know, to race at the level that these guys were racing at was really important for me, and I was still pretty small coming from a Moto3, so it was quite the evolution for me as a rider and as a person as well. And not only that, not only the bike, but, you know, to be on a team that I have my own crew chief, my own mechanic, this was all very, very big step for me. To be looking at data, telemetry, this was all completely new, because coming from Rookies Cup, everything is pretty raw. So everything was amazing, you know. Going to Daytona, my first ever, obviously that's not MotoAmerica, but it is a Daytona 200, a really well-known race, and it was my first race with them, and it was, you know, pretty good. Youngest pole position Daytona, so that was huge for me and a really good first step into the US. And then I think it was also a good race. You know, it sucked that we couldn't get the win, but we were really, really close. And P2 in my first ever Daytona 200 was something amazing for me, and I think also good for the team, just for everyone, you know.
So you put that in perspective, first time on 600 race bike, fresh out of Europe, first time here just practicing, gets pole at Daytona. Daytona is a daunting racetrack, pole and then gets second place. When you chose him coming out of the Red Bull Rookie Cup, was there any concern putting on 600, getting up to speed on a new motorcycle?
There was a transition. So we had actually finished the Red Bull Rookies season and flew to the U.S. I picked him up at Atlanta Airport. We had a test the Tuesday after the Barber MotoAmerica season finale at Barber Motorsports Park. So we put him on a 600 there. That was actually his first Arai experience wearing a hammer. Remember the 2018 celebration rep? We had one of those for him to wear. And so his first time wearing an Arai was a hammer replica. So that was pretty special for that. We were able to do that that test and just see how he liked it, see how he liked us and the team. And then we did the Daytona season finale for the CCS, so he did the team challenge. So he had a little bit of experience at Daytona, a little bit of experience on a 600, but still, Daytona is a much different track than, say, Road Atlanta.
Right.
And so we rolled out we did some testing, went to Daytona, then went into the season opener for MotoAmerica, Road Atlanta, and he's coming over some of the hills like out of turn 5 and tucking in like a Moto3. And it was like, okay, man, there's some transition that needed to happen there. He had to be a little bit more dynamic on the motorcycle, and then obviously put some muscle on to be able to ride the bike. And he did that very quickly. The FP2, I went and watched him come over the top of the hill at Atlanta out of turn 5 and watched him tuck in and short shift the bike, and I was like, oh, okay. Ran back, told him what he was doing, and then instantly it was back, and he was on the podium on Saturday. So pretty fast learner in terms of that stuff, and takes input really quickly, which is
what you want in a rider.
Yeah, you want a rider to
Does
be
what you say.
Well, you want him to be coachable, whether I'm doing the coaching or his crew chief or his regular coach is doing the coaching. It doesn't matter. They need a true professional needs to be coachable.
Right.
And that was one of the traits we look at in riders, and
awesome.
He was able to learn quickly and be successful.
Cool. So I want to jump into your first win last year. I think it was Pittsburgh.
Yes, sir.
How many races was that into the season?
That was probably
8 or 9.
Yeah, it was about 7 weekends in.
So
7 weekends in.
It was the second race of the weekend.
Actually,
right?
I won both that weekend,
Both,
Saturday
okay.
and Sunday, double win.
So we'll talk about Sunday race, because it was a pretty heated battle with another M4 rider, Bobby.
Yep.
And you guys, you gave him no space. You didn't give him any room. Didn't feel bad for him. You just elbow to elbow. You wanted to win.
Absolutely. I mean, number one was, I had won on Saturday, my first ever win in MotoAmerica, but Bobby had a pretty big crash, and it happened right in front of me, so I saw everything, and they red flagged it. We had to restart, and I still had, very good fight. My first win was amazing, but come Sunday, I knew Bobby was pretty hurt, but he was still, in the warm-up. He was pretty far back in the warm-up, but he was, really beat up. I think he had something going on with his ankle, and he was obviously going to race. He's Bobby. We knew it was going to happen, but when it came race time, he started on the front row, and I remember, I led like the first 2 laps in the race, and I was not expecting Bobby to come by me on Sunday. And when he came by me about 3 laps in, I said, I can't say any bad words, but I said a bad word in my helmet. I said, this guy really just passed me. After seeing what happened and seeing how hurt he was, that morning, I couldn't believe it. So I really couldn't believe it that he was fighting with me on Sunday, and even like that, I had no sympathy for him. I was like, yeah, props to him, but I still want to win this race. I had my first win on Saturday, and I wanted it really bad on Sunday as well. Yeah. So we had a really good battle the whole race. We had some other people in that front group, so it was quite the battle the whole way around. But I think the last lap was pretty emotional. I know these guys were,
Yeah, it was pretty intense, I'm sure, behind the wall.
Yeah, I know their heart rate.
Yeah.
Their heart rate was probably higher than ours. But it was really nice. You know, we had a clean last lap, but we had some passes back and forth. And last lap, I definitely had to close the door on him. But luckily, everything went pretty well, and we still had, you know, the 1-2 for the team, and it was one of the closest finishes I think in Super Sport. So it was awesome.
And I give him a little grief for it. And I'm going to ask Chris a little bit about his feeling on the other side of the wall and after the race, how that conversation went. But I want to show you the video of the Saturday crash in race 1 that Bobby took that made his performance so impressive on Sunday. So let's look at that video.
Oh man.
So basically, he basically asked the helmet to do everything it would ever need to do in a crash. He high-sided himself, hit the ground, bounced a couple times, slid, tumbled, and then the bike landed on his chest and head, ripping the shield off the helmet. And obviously he's not happy, and he's limping over to check the bike out, but got right back up, checking the bike, picking up the parts. It's just one of those things where, as you talked earlier, nobody plans to crash. I'm sure Bobby didn't want to crash out of the league, but this stuff happens when you're pushing the envelope. So from this crash, they had to put the bike back together, tape his ankle, I'm sure, get cleared by the doctors. The helmet took a pretty big shot. There's a big gouge in the helmet, some grinding marks on the helmet. But it was pretty big for him to come back on Sunday and fight his teammate to the very end for that win was pretty darn impressive. And for this young guy to make him work for it and then not to give it to him, it's pretty cool. I mean, you know, some guys might have been like, oh, he earns it, deserves it, he's my teammate, the number 1 guy, I'm number 2 guy. It's pretty cool that he said, nope, not today. But to Bobby's credit, he must have been just pumped. I mean, adrenaline going.
Absolutely.
So
I was in medical when that was going on, and he had some help too. So
yeah.
You know, that's a good thing about the medical team. They have an actual doctor on site, so they can help with pain relief and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I mean, watching that crash, right? I've probably thrown myself down the road plenty. I mean, I have actually, but pretty happy about it, right? You watch the bike jump on his head, you watch the airbag go off, and then he's able to, he's limping around. He had some other fractures in his back and other stuff, and he was able to race the next day. So that's ideal from a team perspective, to be able to pick yourself off the ground and have safety equipment that's able to do that. You know, we've had some big crashes with our guys, like Valentin DeBeest comes to mind with his Daytona 200 crash, and then another one at Pittsburgh, and those are 2 crashes that could have been really catastrophic, and they weren't in the grand scheme of things of racing. And so it's watch that stuff, and you become you're a firm believer, actually, experiencing it myself obviously, but you're a pretty firm believer in the concept of the shell, the helmet, and the liner, and what Arai does and how it protects the head. So it's nothing's foolproof, but for Bobby to be able to have a bike jump on top of his head, get up, and roll out the next day, it's pretty ideal from our standpoint, and obviously for his standpoint, because that ride on Sunday won him the championship.
Yeah.
So it was good for everybody involved.
Now, as far as watching those guys run together, I mean, obviously they were clean. It wasn't a bad race. So the question is, the conversation after the event. What was the conversation like? Don't do that again. I mean, obviously you want them to win, but was there any concern at all about?
No. I mean, our team owner, from the ownership standpoint, right? It's we're going racing.
Okay.
And the only thing we ask is you don't hit your teammate, or cause them to deviate their line enough that they can't make the corner. That's it. Okay.
But still, nail biter on the other side of the wall.
Jeez, man, I'm watching that going, oh my. But I have faith in my guys, and so it's it's nerve-wracking, but you hire professionals. I mean, I can remember some times where we actually had some teammates, especially when I was a kid, and that were running into each other all the time, and one or both didn't get renewed at the end of the year. So it was you can't have that as a team, right? But thankfully that both the guys are very professional and they did their jobs, and all the racing, right? The racing was as clean as you can ask.
Right.
Close but hard. But at the end of the day, they're not coming off punching each other. So that was something we didn't have to manage, and it was good. I can't say that about a lot of other guys in the paddock. So.
And it was compelling TV, so having both your guys being the focus, because it's so often somebody runs away with the race and they're focusing on second and third. It's nice to watch your team on TV leading 1 and 2, giving the best battle on the racetrack. That's got to be just exactly what you want, your sponsors want.
It was a good moment.
I want.
It was for you guys, and then good moment for Sean. I think they'd worked so hard, over the years, and then to be able to finally get a win on Saturday and then get a double, and I was happy to share that moment with him, and then also have Sean and his dad go up and accept the team trophy, and that was kind of a very emotional moment for the entire team, and Sean, obviously Sean's family. So it was nice. It was nice to be able to create that opportunity for that moment to happen for his family. So, and at the end of the day, it's great for the team, great for the program, but I'm sure that's a day he's never going to forget.
Yeah. So, have you tested an Arai yet? I mean, properly, fully on the ground, with your full heart behind it?
Well, in a different way, I'd say. I think Sonoma last year, when let's just say I got deviated to the outside of the track and had to go straight into a wall at, I think it was 70 or 80 miles an hour. And again, it's a different type of hit, right? It's not a high side like Bobby's, where you land in the asphalt. But I did go into a wall, and the front of the helmet did have its small, noticeable things, and I did have a little bit of a whack to the head, that's for sure. But I was also able to get back up. I got checkups at the hospital, no issues, no bad issues, and go the next day and race 2 at Sonoma. I actually had to start from the back of the grid because of some rule going on with lap times that weekend. Right. And I went from the back of the grid up to, I think, 6th in Super Sport. So I think that was probably one of my biggest hit actually racing. I've also had a couple hits, training with the Arai, but nothing too bad. Am I forgetting anything?
You hit your head MotoAmerica this year?
Oh, that was good. Yeah. Okay, I did hit my first race.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolute first race of the season this year. Something happened in a few laps into the race. Race 1, absolute first race of the season, and I had a pretty big get off going in, actually an entry high side, and that was entry high sides aren't usually nice. They're pretty mean to you, and I definitely did land in a pretty weird way with my head, but that's actually one that, considering what the crash was, I was pretty fine. I mean, I think I had a little sprain in my wrist, but I was totally okay. Like, I had no issues with my head, and the helmet definitely did get a beating. I couldn't use it. And I was totally fine. I was totally aware of what was going on the whole time. I think sometimes that's worse when nothing happens to your head, because you know what's going on and you're just mad. You're just mad, but that was definitely so far the only crash this year, so knock on wood.
I always joke with guys, we do a lot of testing. You don't feel the need to test our helmets anymore.
I don't. I tested it enough.
So, hitting the wall at 80, walking away, getting cleared, and racing the next day is one thing. High side, getting up the next day, again, destroying the helmet in the process, and racing the next day. And that's kind of, helmets are not concussion, eliminators. Anyone can get concussed, knocked out. There is no guarantee in any helmet. But obviously, if you do your job better, stronger shell, displace the energy, absorb the energy, give itself up for you so that you don't get the energy and you can get up and keep riding, that's what the helmets are for. So helmets are there to get in the way, destroy themselves so that you don't get that energy. So it's good that you've had some experience. Now you've got it out of the way. You can move on, just move forward. So we pulled this helmet out to show that you're one of the few guys that are testing actively our new EX2 extended diffuser. We want to quick get that in before we run out of time. How long have you been using it, and what are your impressions?
Well, first of all, I absolutely love this wind deflector. I think my first time trying it was MotoAmerica 1 this year.
Okay.
So I went with the standard all year 2019, and then I got it placed on my helmet, or actually it was an option for the first round in MotoAmerica, and I'm like, I saw it last year in MotoGP riders with the Arai, and obviously it's awesome. It just looks good, right? So as a rider, I'm like, man, that looks good, but I never got the option from Arai. I'm not going to ask for it, okay? But when I got the option this year, I'm like, yeah, of course, let's try it. And honestly, I wasn't thinking of the actual benefit that it could give until I actually did try it. And luckily, I tried it at MotoAmerica that has pretty big speeds in general when it coming up to braking zones, and that was by far the #1 spot where I really did notice a difference going into braking zones, coming out of the bubble of the bike at, obviously at clearly high speeds, and the helmet just wasn't shaking the stability in general is good in braking zones, but this definitely improved it a lot. And I think someone like me, for example, I have to use contacts, right? Because I have bad vision, unfortunately, and I have to use contacts, and my head movement is really important for that, right? Because obviously contact's something in your eye, you don't really want your head moving around too much, and the stability of the helmet is something super important for me, and that's something that definitely improved a lot. So I have it 24/7 on my helmet now, and I don't think I'm going to want to change it out of any other Arai helmet from now on.
Cool. But to be clear, the performance benefits wasn't what you were really interested in at first. It looked cool. Then you realized it had some performance benefits.
Yeah. So
it's kind of a bonus.
He is a rider.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that looks cool. Why do you do that?
And if it works, that's better.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty. I installed it on his helmet, so it's pretty easy. So Brian, I got a question for you. All the external pieces on the helmet, the vents, everything, they're all glued on using double-sided tape.
Double-sided tape, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, we talked about in the crash, when you saw Bobby's crash, and a lot of crashes, most of the crashes are dynamic. People tend to slide and tumble at speed until they finally run out of energy and slow down and stop. So as you tumble and roll, you want nothing protruding from the helmet that's going to interfere with that sliding or rolling and that dispersing of energy. You don't want anything sticking out of the helmet that's going to catch, stopping the helmet for even a brief millisecond that would send energy in, causing injury. So we put all our external vents, which are necessary. Vents are necessary, aerodynamics are necessary, but we put everything external of the shell. Shell's extremely round and smooth. It needs to be to slide and bounce and glance off of things, hold its integrity. And all these pieces, once their job is done, once you're in a crash, they're a liability. There's no reason for them to be. So in a crash, these will disappear. They will crush, they will grind off, they will break off, and leave you with that round, smooth shell, so that during the crash, there's nothing left to cause any undue movement or send any energy into the helmet. So all of our parts are frangible, extremely delicate. A lot of people say they're too delicate. We err on the side of caution. All our parts are fairly fragile. They're put on with double-sided tape, which is pretty robust, but when it becomes necessary, it will break away. Could you want it to break away more easily, then rather have it too tough and not break away soon enough? Consequently, if you drop your helmet on the ground, you might break a vent. Hit it against a door jamb, you might crack a vent. It's the price we pay for making sure that the helmet will perform in a crash and not do anything stupid, like sending energy inside that might give you an injury. So everything we do is with the purpose of protection. Unfortunately, we don't do it for trends or fashion or the cool factor. Sometimes all things come together and it's cool. But first and foremost, it's functional, but beyond that, it's protection. If it does anything to take away from our protection, we don't do it. Only if it adds to performance without taking away protection will Arai do something. So when you talk about Arai, it's a unique company because Mr. Arai wants it that way. It's always been about protection, and it always will be about protection. So we're super glad to have you in it, again, stop testing. Hopefully Bobby also has hit his fair share of testing.
He's done plenty, man. He could be your #1 product tester.
And
he does a great job, though.
He does. And
he's fast, and you want your guys to be willing to take it to that level. Yeah. Sometimes you make mistakes when you're fighting for a podium in superbike class or fighting for a podium or a win in the supersport class. So you got to be able to have your guys feel comfortable in the equipment they're using, and
all the confidence to come back from that crash on Saturday and then race for the win on Sunday, even all injured, it's pretty stellar. And then that brings me to my final point of, we've been in a relationship going on 40 years now, so, protecting your riders. I mean, obviously it's a business relationship. We all have to sell helmets, we have to make money. But we love the sport. We want to get back to the sport. We want to protect our investments. I mean, our riders, our customers are relying on us to protect them, and we want to make sure we give them the best protection. So, in business aside, how is that relationship? How do you feel about that?
This is an interesting deal because for many years I've been able to operate independently. Say before I retired and came into Team Hammer full time, I raced independently of Team Hammer. I actually rode for the team, got fired. That's another story. Didn't do well enough. So and then
I never fired my son.
Restarted my career and got to the point where I could get hired again. So and that took a good solid six or 8 years. Started my own team in the meantime, and I'd gone to a couple different brands. And one brand in particular, I looked at it, and a specific world champion was wearing this brand at the time. And I hit my head at Sonoma in 2011, ran my brake lever in the back of JD Beach, which wasn't a very good idea. Over the top, hit my head, bike hit me in the head. And, first I rolled a stop and I was okay, and then when I would get a concussion, it would kind of come on a little bit after. And some stuff got a little fuzzy after that. But I went to the hospital and said, you're fine, no concussion. But for 4 months, I suffered from proper concussion symptoms, and I was cleared to ride 30 days after. And then, and additionally, another 12 months after that, it took me to get my speed to the point where I was another, top 5 superbike guy again. And it was really weird. And I never figured. I went to a proper doctor a little bit into the process, and along that journey, in October 2011, my dad called me one day, and he's hey man, you got a minute? And that particular day was a pretty tragic day for motorcycle racing. And he gives me you got a minute? And I'm like, I don't get the got a minute. I don't get it. I don't screw stuff up that much to get the got a minute. So I knew it was going to be a pretty serious conversation. And I said, look man, I'm already going back. It doesn't matter what happened that day or any day before. It's just based on my experience. Wandering the wilderness, I was just of racing. Like I wanted to be a motorcycle racer. I was proper, top 5 superbike guy at the time, and couldn't finish a race because whatever the situation was going on with my head, because I was wearing a brand of helmet that probably wasn't up to the spec, and I was chasing money more than protection. So I switched back, and haven't had a big problem since. I've dragged my head across the ground plenty of times since then, and it gives me I got a wife and kids now, and I ride quite at a pretty high level still, and I was raising a family at the time, and it gives me this peace of mind. I put this helmet on, there's a pretty darn good chance I'm going to be good. Yeah. So. Nothing's foolproof, but at the end of the day, you want to give yourself the best opportunity to survive and have a normal life, and that's what I wanted to do. So I went back, and I went getting paid a lot of money from one brand to wearing another brand for nothing. Yeah. And at that time, I was an independent racer, right. And obviously the team has a business relationship, which goes both ways on that end. But I was willing to, for my own safety, I was willing to do that. Yeah. And
priorities. Yeah. Well, awesome. I mean, we've had nothing but good relationships. Again, my dad started with your dad, and then there's no reason to stop as far as that goes. It's the longest, I think, single relationship that Hammer's had and we've had in a
continuously too.
I think in any relationship, there might be some out there, but it's nice to know that there's some continuity and trust and almost a given. There is no question of, okay, we're going to sign Hammer again this year. It's just about, did we sign the paper yet? Yeah. It literally comes down to that. So it's nice to have that relationship in a world that has kind of changed. It's really more about, the next, like you said, paycheck and who's willing to pay more and marketing. And while we have to market, everyone has to market, we tend to market a different way. We're marketing about protection and the history of Arai and why we do what we do. And that's a hard sell, like you said. So a lot of people get lured away with the need to pay bills and to pay your own way. But we try and put on the other side of, look, we may not pay the most, in some cases nothing, but we believe we're going to offer more protection, and that's something has, in my opinion, a cash value you can't really put a number on.
Yeah, you think about the money I lost not racing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like at the end of the day, it is a business relationship, but it's still you can't sell product you don't believe in.
Right.
You can't. I can't look at my guys in their eyes and go, you got to wear this because they paid 87 million times more, whatever.
Right.
Say, just pick your number, right? But but at the end of the day, yeah, it's business, but it's also I have a personal responsibility for Sean Dillon Kelly at the end of the day, and he trusts me to do the right thing for him in terms of the team and the team sponsors and stuff, and yeah, there's a financial benefit that goes along with sponsorships and everything else, but at the end of the day too, you have to be selling product using product that you yourself will wear and you yourself have tested and smashed your head in. So
cool. Well, I appreciate that. So we appreciate you guys coming by. Quick, I forgot to mention that the EX diffuser EX2 has been visible in the market in Europe, in Asia. In America, it was delayed. They are coming in within the next 30 days. So if you're interested in getting one, start checking out your dealers, websites, online. I don't know who's going to have them first or exactly when, but these smoke diffusers will be in market within 30 days. I want to thank Sean Dillon, Chris, and Nick for stopping by and making our first live broadcast a success. I think we did pretty well. Didn't fumble too much. Nobody cursed. Nick was really worried about that. That was awesome. We appreciate you sticking by and hanging out and watching. The next live broadcast we're going to do, we will have the comments open. We'll take questions. We'll answer questions. And we'll start to establish a place where people can request topics for us to open up and talk about specifically and help people understand their helmets, how to work with their helmets, what to look for in a helmet, how to fit their helmet. A lot of general stuff, but mostly stuff will apply to Arai. And again, we appreciate you sticking with us for the better part of an hour and 12 minutes, give or take. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good day.